Catherine Guo received a call from her niece Ellie on February 13, 2020.
I think my dad was involved in some way. I don't know how. I think it's a slim possibility that my mom is alive. She wouldn't really go without talking to me for over a year now. That just seems unlikely to me. I'm not shocked by the way he's protected.
Only 1 month before the COVID-19 pandemic put us on lockdown. She claimed that Angela, Catherine's younger sister, and her mother had passed away. Anxious and inconsolable, Catherine started planning in her head how she would gather her family, fly to Prairie Village, Kansas, where Angela lived, and arrange for the burial. Ellie then made another shocking revelation. She told her aunt, "No, she passed away on the 16th. She passed away on July 16th, 2019, 7 months prior." What happened to Angela Green? Angela Green was born in 1968 in Beijing, Hebei, China. She is an Asian woman who weighs about 110 pounds and is 5'7" feet tall. In China, where he briefly worked as a mechanic, Angela met and married Geoff Green. They began a family a few years later, when Ellie, their one child, was born. Catherine, Angela's sister, also immigrated to the country, and they kept in touch until Angela vanished. After Ellie was born, she decided to stay at home after a brief stint of employment in the insurance sector. Angela's social circle was extremely constrained. She is quite kind but reserved, according to her neighbors. She didn't have many friends at all. She lacked a car, a bank account, credit cards, or debit cards of her own. The Greens didn't follow any particular religion, and she had very few friends outside her husband and Ellie. Angela spent most of her time at home. She kept her home quite dark when she was there. Some questioned whether she was depressed or whether there were interpersonal issues at home. Every time Angela spoke on the phone with her sister Catherine, she tended to focus on her personal requirements or worries about Ellie. When Angela insisted that they only use English when they were on the phone, her sister became worried. Catherine couldn't tell whether Angela actually wanted to converse just in English or whether she was being forced to do so because Geoff didn't speak or understand her original language. Angela reportedly had a short fuse and was prone to outbursts of rage, including throwing objects during family disputes. Ellie acknowledges that her mother had problems with vocal rage. Angela didn't use social media. In fact, she rarely took her phone out with her. Angela used to make lunch for Ellie when she lived at home, including throughout her first year in college. Usually, a note telling Ellie how much her mother loved her was tucked inside the food. Wednesday, June 19, 2019. Ellie Green, now a student at University of Kansas, and her mother got into a fight at their house between 6:30 and 8:30 p.m. about the decisions Ellie was making, especially how she was showing greater independence. Ellie had recently returned from an Italian study abroad experience. Ellie was just leaving the nest, and Angela was finding it difficult to adjust. Angela began shouting about their disagreements in both English and her native Chinese as their dispute heated up. Although Ellie speaks Chinese with ease, her father does not. The husband left the couple's argument and went to his room, waiting for the storm to blow over. Ellie left to stay with her boyfriend's family at Angela's request. Even though her mother had never before asked her to leave the house, she said their disagreement was not serious. On June 20th, 2019, Angela was last seen at her house in Prairie Village, Kansas, 1700th block of Tomahawk Road. Sadly, things were just about to get worse. A few days after their dispute, Ellie's father, Geoff Green, texted her to let her know that he had checked her mother into a psychiatric hospital. To put it mildly, these texts were vague. "How are you? We need to talk about Mom. Em is getting mental health care, and I'm at home beginning to organize. Come by anytime. Front door is open. I am going to need help going through Mom's things. We met the mental health people in the parking lot. and it was a struggle. These mental health people were who? Doctors? Medical assistants in the police force? Why would they accept a man and his wife without asking them inside their facilities after they met in a public parking lot? Ellie thought her mother could have had rage, but it wasn't anything that needed to be acknowledged. She often asked her father these questions, but he would not elaborate. Even the hospital where her mother was being treated was kept a secret by him. She asserted that he had merely stated that she was in a hospital down south and would remain there until she recovered. Visits to my mother were refused. Geoff also gave his kid a coded instruction not to tell her aunt or cousins about her mother's convalescence. On July 6, 2019, Geoff visited Ellie at the home of her boyfriend and broke the news that Angela had passed away from a stroke while under the care of the medical health facility. Ellie questioned her father once more, and once more he refused to respond. Angela Green's funeral was not held. Geoff said to Ellie that he didn't probe the caller who informed him of Angela's passing because he was preoccupied at work. He was unaware of the name or location of the hospital where Angela allegedly passed away. The caller who informed him that she had passed away left him without a name or phone number because he was really busy at work. Geoff claimed he made the decision to hold no memorial service without consulting Ellie. According to Geoff, he approved cremation without any further debate. Geoff responded to Ellie's request to see her mother's ashes by saying they would be delivered shortly, but not before he had to buy an urn. She later learned that a mysterious man had once knocked on Geoff's home and demanded $1,500 in cash in exchange for the remains of Angela, which had been placed in the urn. Ellie was asked by her father not to tell the rest of the family about her mother's passing, and for months, she didn't. In February 2020, like I said at the start, Ellie told her aunt the truth. Ellie confided that she had never even seen her mother's death certificate to her cousin Michelle Guo. She headed to the Kansas Department of Health and Environment to seek a copy in an effort to discover more about her mother's passing, because her father was not very helpful. They were unable to find any documentation of Angela Green's passing. Catherine Guo, Ellie's aunt and Angela's sister, tried calling Angela's number 2 days after learning from her niece that her sister had passed away, but no one answered. So she left a voicemail in a futile effort to get in touch with her or anyone who might know something about her disappearance. She was unaware that Geoff had obtained his wife's phone number and was not planning on phoning his sister-in-law back at the time. Michelle called the police and asked for a wellness check to be conducted on her aunt at this point, after getting no responses from Geoff regarding the whereabouts of his wife or the alleged death. An enormous departure from his initial claim that Angela had passed away in a mental health facility. Geoff informed the police when they arrived at the Green residence that Angela was on a 3-day spa getaway with some companions. Her handbag, phone, driver's license, passport, and automobile, among other crucial personal items, had been left behind. Angela had no friends, was a complete homebody, and refused to even go grocery shopping with her husband or daughter, according to family members. So there was no way she would go on a girls' trip. Police advised that there was little they could do and that they would check in again in 3 days to see if Angela had returned. When they did, however, they ran into a very uncooperative Geoff, who only provided them with his criminal defense lawyer's contact information and refused to speak to them. Ellie formally reported her mother missing in February 2020, and an inquiry was launched into her absence. Geoff again changed his narrative while speaking to Ellie about her mother, telling her that her mother had passed away, and this time adding that he had cremated her. He informed Ellie that Angela's ashes and death certificate were kept at the residence. Ellie has yet to see either, and her father hasn't let her know what the name of the hospital Angela was staying at was. He only submitted a picture of a vivid red urn in response to her request for a picture of the urn and the certificate as verification, stating that he couldn't locate the document. The Green home was searched by police shortly after the first of 2 search warrants were carried out. The death certificate was nowhere to be found, and when they looked inside the urn, they saw that it was empty. A review of Geoff's bank records revealed that he had bought the urn himself, rather than having it delivered to a funeral home. Police were allowed entry to a building where Geoff kept his automobiles, thanks to the second search warrant. Angela's body was not discovered, despite divers searching a pond close to the home. Ellie found a mysterious mound of soil in the backyard of a third home that Geoff owned, about an hour's drive west of the main home. Oddly enough, there were some newly planted flowers close to the mound. Considering that nobody was presently residing there, who would plant the flowers and why? Could the flowers be some type of twisted memorial, and to the mound Angela's grave? Did Geoff put them there? Ellie obtained soil samples from the site and provided them to the private detectives, who dispersed the soil over 3 different locations. Then, they asserted 2 cadaver dogs that indicated that human remains were present at each of the 3 locations. Police used this data to obtain a 3rd warrant for this property, but they were still unable to find Angela Green's body this time. Ellie spoke to her father on the phone several times over this time, recording each one in case he said something significant. Geoff again flip-flopped and informed Ellie that Angela was alive and had fled with a buddy during one of these phone calls. He explained that he didn't want her to believe that her mother had abandoned her when she questioned why he had told her she was dead when she wasn't. A life insurance policy that was signed and dated after Angela vanished was found by authorities during the home search. Ellie acknowledged that she had no understanding of what she was signing when her father forced her to sign the paperwork while posing as her mother. She still had faith in her father at that point, so she followed instructions. If Angela died, Geoff might stand to make some money. As of right now, Voices for Justice, a podcast hosted by Sarah Turney, Dateline, and The Dr. Phil Show, all feature Angela Green's story. Ellie Green moved out of the state and has lost contact with her father. She is adamant that her father was responsible for her mother's disappearance. To generate money for legal fees and a comprehensive investigation into her aunt's disappearance, Michelle Guo set up a GoFundMe campaign. She intends to sue Geoff for Angela's tragic death along with her family. The investigation into Geoff Green is still ongoing because he has not been charged or arrested. Ellie responded, "I'm still trying to make something of my life and make my mom proud, as well as finding answers so the rest of us might have something to go off of as we continue to move on with our lives." She said when questioned about the potential civil lawsuit against her father. This past December, she received her journalism degree. Anyone with information is encouraged to call Prairie Village Police at 913-642-6868 or contact the Anonymous Crime Stoppers Tips Hotline at 816-474-TIPS 8477.